Austrian Grand Prix made it a bit of a heart attack for some people watching it, left some others a little hot under the collar, and some surprise results came on tap this weekend. It kind of had a little bit of everything, and if you watched any of the F3 and F2 races, we saw Formula cars turned into bowling pins as well. So quite the weekend on tap. But you have found the Outlap F1 podcast. This will be season 7, episode 22. It's our Austrian GP review show. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. Cody, it is good to see you, my friend. How's it hanging on a still rather warm Sunday night here in Chicago?
It's much better now. Had a wonderful, relaxing day. Did start off the weekend with some unexpected work that I got called in for. So I was a busy beaver yesterday, out in the heat. But yeah, doing a lot better now. So long as I don't think too hard about the Formula One race, which of course is what we're going to do.
Well, we kind of have to. I mean, it's kind of what we do. So we will cover the good, the bad, and some of the weird, and also a little bit of the ugly that happened, especially on the first lap there. I don't like taking pleasure in others' pitfalls, so I was just a little quiet. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to text you. You're probably throwing stuff, and if you watch the race, you probably know why. But as always, we are glad you are here. You can find us on Blue Sky, on X, on Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and of course here on YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle. You can do us a solid and click the like and subscribe button. Or you can, if you're on your favorite podcasting app, do a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That will help our content come up a little bit better in search results and help us get our stuff to you that much quicker. You can email the show, outlapf1@gmail.com. Thank you so much to Outlap F1 Nation, who continues to support our little endeavor here. Thank you so much to Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of that hashtag Outlap F1 Nation and get a shout out at the beginning of every show, you can see our anchor page. And if you want to leave us a small little monetary donation, you have the ability to do that. Do you have to do that? Of course not. We're not exactly asking for one. But if you'd like to, $1, $5, it would all go back into making the show better. All go into keeping this recording platform up to date and current, and keeping our microphones and all that other stuff up to date as well. You can find, like I said, there's always a link in our show notes. Shout out, you kind of had an adventurous weekend. I did too. I got to see the company that I work for, their main property out in Michigan. So it was an interesting weekend from that perspective, and an interesting qualifying watch. I will probably share the story of trying to get mobile internet to work in a small town. It's all kind of weird how that managed to work, but luckily found enough bandwidth to get the session in. So, yeah, where there's a will, there's a way. Sometimes it takes something, but we will start, as we are always apt to do, with our headlines of the day. Cody, what you got here? Oh, no! There it goes!
Norris showed today that he still has the skill and confidence to make this a serious championship fight. And that's it. There's absolutely nothing else that happened that we should be talking about.
It's the Homer Simpson scene deleted, walking around the merry-go-round afterwards. That's all that happened at this race today. But, yeah, we're going to have to talk about some unpleasantness in Red Bull land for sure. My headline is a quote from a song that I take a lot of inspiration from. It's by a band called Stained, and if I already told you that falling is easy, it's getting back up that becomes the problem. If you don't believe you can find your way out, you've become the problem. And today, problem solved. Lando Norris had every bit of criticism thrown his way. I saw all sorts of videos writing him off after one small little bit of indecision. That it was a dumb decision. We talked about it on this show. I agreed with that call. Shouldn't have done it. He's put his hand up. He went back to work. He ended up getting in a track that just really, really suits him. And pretty much dominant all weekend, as close to dominant as he's been in a while. This is the high. You have the lows with him, and you have the highs. And this weekend was certainly a high, and it was fun to see. All right. So we will talk about the adventure of qualifying, and it's not so much an adventure of qualifying the session. There was some things with that, but it was really more trying to watch it for both of us. Cody was a little indisposed with his full-time job. I was indisposed by trying to figure out how to work mobile internet in a little small harbor town in Michigan, and figuring out where in the room I should put the damn thing so it actually worked. So I managed to get most of the session in, but we're going to talk about it. I actually have the sound queued up. Here we go. All right. Here we go. All right. So going out in P20, his weekend would vastly improve after this. Nico Hulkenberg in the Kick Sauber, P19. This was unfortunately a harbinger of bad things to come for Carlos Sainz in the Williams. Ouch, that was not what we were expecting. P18. Yuki Tsunoda was the guinea pig. We talked about that. They were going to put all sorts of weird setup on that kart. Yeah, it didn't work. P17 was Esteban Ocon in the Haas. His Sunday would get much better. P16 was Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. Advancing through to Q2 but going no farther. P15 was Ali Behrman. P14 was Franco Colapinto. P13, Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls. P12 was Alex Albon in the other Williams. And P11, just missing out on Q3, would have been 3 in a row had he done this, Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. Making the top 10 shootout was in P10 was Pierre Gasly, although his adventure proved to be pivotal at the end. We'll talk about that. P9 was Kimi Antonelli. P8, stunner of qualifying. This dude had himself a weekend. He ate his strudel or something that gave him superpowers this weekend. Gabby Bortoletto in the Kick Sauber, first ever Q3 appearance. Congratulations. P7, shocker that we're talking about him here. That is Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. P6 was Liam Lawson. The highest Red Bull, Racing Bull, and whatever Red Bull team at the Red Bull Ring is Liam Lawson, the guy that they replaced after two races. Remember him? Yeah, look at that. P5 was George Russell. P4, best qualifying of the season for him, Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. The Ferrari updates apparently working. Is that something good to see for that team? P3 was Oscar Piastri. P2, a mega qualifying lap to split the McLarens, who looked dominant in practice, from Charles Leclerc, but it was not enough. The guy was on it, and he didn't screw up Q3 this time. Lando Norris in the McLaren, a 1:03.971. We will also have to talk about why the gap is quite so big. All right. The big issue in the qualifying was at the end of Q3, Pierre Gasly went for a bit of a 360 spin in the last turn and basically screwed up everybody else's final laps. He screwed up Piastri's final lap. He screwed up Hamilton's final lap. Max Verstappen never got a second bite at the apple. So some of these guys who were on used tires for their first runs never got to show really what they could do. What it leads to is Lando Norris having the biggest qualifying gap by percentage, by time, however metric you want to have it, this season. We expected it to be very tight. Q1 was obviously very, very tight. Q2 was very tight, but Q3, because of the tire offset and the Gasly spin, proves to be a little, not necessarily misleading. Lando put together one hell of a lap, but Cody, big thoughts here.
It is a little misleading. When I first looked at the time gap, so as stated before, I had to work yesterday from early in the morning, so I didn't really get to watch qualifying live. So my experience with qualifying was me being a little grumpy about having to work Saturday and being like, oh, qualifying's over. I wonder what happened. Oh, shit. Max is in 7th. What the heck happened? Oh, shit. Lando is half a second in front of everybody? Like, holy cow, he really put it together. And then I finally watched the highlights and was like, oh, it all makes a little bit more sense. But yes, he did put together a very good lap. I was a little grumpy about Max starting in 7th, and I thought, okay, well, he's got a lot of work to do on Sunday to bring that back. But Max is Max, and Max can do it. And the grass caught fire again.
Yeah, we had the grass. The grass is on fire. Song playing once again. We had a bit of an unfortunate red flag. Lewis Hamilton set the grass on fire by running a little bit wide. and having his plank go over the grass, and it caught fire, and then the FIA had to go do the whole dousing routine, which they did, and luckily that was the only time it got interrupted. It was rather hot in Austria. It was not, when we did our weather preview, it looked to be in the mid-80s. It ended up being quite much hotter than that, both on qualifying and on race day. Yeah, so, I mean, like, we talked about the Gasly spin. That affected a whole lot of the lap times. The big surprise, Gabby Bortoleto, soft tires or used tires, new tires, whatever. The dude was on it early on in FP3, and then early on, especially in the qualifying, he was putting his car up in the top 5 pretty consistently, and manages to bring it home not only in the top 10, but not just in 10th. So great showing there for him. Again, we talked about it a little bit. I think the other pleasant surprise, if you're a Ferrari fan, was the good form of both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Not necessarily having anything really for Lando, but Leclerc splitting the two McLarens, that was a surprise. I don't think anybody had that in their bingo card. Everyone assumed Oscar. Now, we never got to see Oscar's second lap, so we don't necessarily know if that would have held, but yeah, I mean, their updates are definitely working for them, so that was interesting to see, and that may bode well for them as well. Talking a little bit about the Mercedes, the hotter it got, it seemed the more that car tended to fade. So Kimi Antonelli way down in 9th, and George Russell in 5th. We'll talk about Kimi and Max in just a minute. Yeah, Cody's already grumbling. We might as well. All right, we're going to do the Band-Aid thing. We're going to right off. We'll get this out of the way. We'll turn our attention to Sunday, and we'll start with the back markers. And again, we have some names here that you would not necessarily ordinarily expect. The first non-classified finisher turns out to be Carlos Sainz. He gets the dreaded did not start. His car had issues on the grid. He eventually got it going after they aborted the whole start procedure, which meant that at minimum he was going to have to start from the pit lane. He pulls the car into the pit lane, and then his brakes caught fire. And that was pretty much the end of his day. They told him game over, hop out of the car. So he gets the dreaded DNS. We then did get going on lap 1, and then the next two get the dreaded DNF. That is Kimi Antonelli and Max Verstappen, who had it coming together going into turn 3. In everybody's, not necessarily in everybody's DRS at this point, because there was no DRS on the first lap, but everybody's jockeying for position like crazy. Kimi Antonelli jinxed to the right, and I think he basically either forgot that he had to stop, or I'm not exactly sure. But he runs out of room. He's on the non-grippy part of the circuit. And Max Verstappen, who was doing absolutely nothing wrong, gets plowed into by Kimi Antonelli and ends both of their day. Cody, do you see it any different than that? I mean, this is almost 100% on Antonelli. The stewards agreed. He will get a 3-place grid penalty for the next race and 2 penalty points on his license.
Yeah, it was definitely Antonelli's fault, and nothing intentional there. They're coming up to that turn at the top of the hill. Antonelli brakes way too late. He's got 2 cars in front of him. I forget which cars, but he's got 2 cars in front of him. He, like you said, he moves to the right to avoid hitting them. And at that point, he's locked up everything and skidding with smoke and just plows right into the back of Max. They showed that live on the TV feed, and I went, oh, shit, this is happening. And then they cut away and they cut back, and he's getting out of the car, and I'm like, well, at least it happened on lap 1 so that I can enjoy the rest of the race. And I'm not sitting there kind of watching Max struggle to get his way into the points and still hold on to championship contention. With this retirement and with the McLaren 1-2 that we're going to talk about in a little bit here, really hate to say it, I think Max's championship hopes are pretty well and truly done now, which I can accept. I think we're going to still get a really good championship fight despite that, which will be really fun to watch. But I think the deficit he has to the 2 McLarens now is going to be it's going to take a miracle to overcome.
Yeah, it's almost math-wise where now again, where there's still a lot of parts of the season. But this was why you're looking at that math and you're looking at it pretty rationally. And this was why I was so not upset, but it was annoying to me that people kept saying, "Oh, Lando, you're right in the championship chase when you're 75 points down." Max is right about at that point, and you're the one saying he's pretty much out of it unless he gets some help. And that's where Lando was. We were getting all the graphics of Max versus Lando, and here we go. And this was at the same point of the season. Now, can it come back down? Yeah. But he's going to need some help. He's going to need them two McLarens to tangle with each other worse than they did today. We'll talk about the first 20 laps in a little bit and how it almost happened. There was a couple moments where it definitely almost could have happened. But, yeah, I mean, it was just an unfortunate thing. Like I said, Max is not doing anything wrong, and it makes the champion. I literally looked at the live standings at the end of the race, and he picked a bad time to have a bad day because basically everybody else who was around him in points scored where you would have expected them to. So, yeah, his championship definitely got a lot harder. Now, does he then relax and just go for it in each race, which is probably what he does anyway? Yeah. So, I mean, there's going to be a freedom to that. He's not going to have to worry about it. He can go hang it out in qualifying, and if he crashes, he crashes. You know, because what has he got to lose? He has absolutely nothing to lose moving forward. So,
no, do I think wants to go out there and win races?
Of course.
And when he's got the car for the weekend to do it, he's going to get there.
Oh, of course.
One thing going into this weekend, and now really following this weekend, is the hills were alive with the sounds of Mercedes rumors because.
Oh my God! Yes, this was a crazy story. Thank you, George.
Yeah. According to George Russell, Max is talking to the Mercedes team about the potential for a future seat. And that's pretty much all we've got to go at this point. But yes, oh my God, the rumor mill is going nuts over that, especially now with his retirement. I was laughing at some of the people saying like, oh, this was a conspiracy by Mercedes to try to get him low enough in the standings so that he could get out of his contract by some exit clause. It's really kind of sad, actually. But for what it was worth, go ahead.
Oh, no, it dominated. Like, you could have thought that this was like fresh meat for all of the reporters, because this was a story that I would have thought would have been dead and dusted. And it started out as, it's interesting. George Russell's the only big name that doesn't have a contract. Makes you think. And he has an interview with, I think, Karun Shandok from Sky F1, and he basically drops this. He doesn't come out and like overtly say it, but it sounded like he kind of said, well, the reason I don't have my contract is because they're still kicking the tires on potentially Max. Well, that sent all of the reporters and all of the media people into an absolute frenzy, and the team principal's press conference, of which Toto Wolff was a participant, that was the entire team principal's press conference, was 50 different ways to ask the same question. Are you going after Max Verstappen, and when are you going to sign him? Type of situation. Max has a contract, I think, through 2028.
Yep.
We've talked about the potential exit clauses in his contract. Red Bull has lived up to their parts of it up until now. I've seen some wacky conspiracy theories that said that the crash today could reactivate those clauses. I don't think so, based on everything that I've read. But, you know, you give a good story to the shark pool, and, you know, here we go. So, whether we'll continue to follow it, obviously, and if something does happen, we'll obviously bring it to you. But I don't think this is really going anywhere. I think they're waiting for the summer break. You're going to get George Russell announced. Maybe it would be top-notch Mercedes. Of course, now we're going to the British Grand Prix. Why would you not announce George Russell at his home race? Wouldn't that make sense? Maybe, kind of, sort of, just from a marketing perspective? I don't know, just saying, just spitballing here. But it's just a very weird story that popped up.
Now, I will play devil's advocate and give the caveat that we kind of were saying the same things about the rumors for Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari.
That's true.
And that happened. So
took a year.
Never know.
That took a year.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's true. I mean, I've been red-faced and wrong before, but And if the car continues to not be there for Max, and it really wasn't in qualifying, he was not a happy bunny for the most part this weekend. That's, I think, the concerning part if you're Red Bull. It's not so much the Mercedes rumors. It's you got to get your car sorted. Your second drivers cannot drive the car.
Nope.
We have enough empirical evidence. It doesn't seem to matter who it is. The second driver cannot drive it. If Max
if you look at our results here, Yuki Tsunoda was the last of the finishers. He's the only car 2 laps down. So
yes.
If Max isn't finishing, they're screwed.
Right. P15 was Franco Colapinto. P14 was Lance Stroll. And P13, the spin and win did not exactly happen to Pierre Gasly. The spin in qualifying puts him down in P10, and that was as good as he got. So he comes home in P13. Any other big thoughts here in the back markers? I know we talked a lot about Max. It's over and done with. We don't have to talk about it no more. But any other thoughts?
A couple things here. So going back to the accident just one more time real quick. He did seem to take it pretty well. Kimi came up to him right when they were getting out of the cars, I assume, saying something along the lines of, "Hey, my bad, dude." And Max said in interviews and everything that, hey, this crap happens sometimes. Like, it is what it is. So, yeah, not exactly the explosive temper from Max that we've seen in the past on this one. Now, a couple of guys that were way down here at the bottom, like Franco Colapinto and Yuki Tsunoda, they, despite being this far back, they did factor into
they did.
The race at the front. They were having a little bit of a battle between them that didn't really mean anything. Right when the leaders, Lando and Oscar, who were fighting for a win, they caught up to them, and I don't know if Yuki and Franco decided that their battle was just as important, or they just, in Franco Colapinto's case, maybe didn't even really realize they were there.
Right.
They had a little bit of a scary incident where Yuki Tsunoda looked like he was going to let Lando by because of the blue flags, and then he didn't. And then you had Oscar Piastri right up on Franco Colapinto, and Franco moves to the right, clearly not knowing that Piastri was there, and runs Piastri well onto the grass. I thought that could have been trouble. So a little bit of sloppy attention from those guys, I suppose.
Yes.
They really need to, pay attention to what's going on around them, for one thing, even if they are battling for their position. The rules are the rules. If you're getting blue flags, if the leaders are there, they're fighting for points. You got to let them by. You got to do it quickly and safely. And then you can get back to your tussle. But, it would have been the worst thing if Colapinto did that and ran Piastri off the road and he ended up having an accident. And that was the reason why he was out. Like, damn, like, you guys can do better.
I think my response was, "Oh my God, what the hell are you doing?" When I saw that, because I was like, I couldn't believe what I was watching. I'm like, one, both of you should have blue flags, and two, you're supposed to be compelled to get out of the way. What you're hampering, like, as you said, and that's for the lead. It's not like it's the fourth place car who maybe you don't realize you got blue flags for. That's P1 and P2 coming by. And Colapinto did get he got a 5-second penalty and a penalty point for it. Doesn't feel harsh enough to really send the message, but whatever.
I mean, if we're being technical, he didn't cause a collision.
Right.
So
he did not touch him. Piastri got back on track. It all is forgiven kind of in the end. Although I loved Oscar, like this. Say whatever you want about Oscar Piastri. The dry wit that this guy has in a racing car is hilarious. 3 laps later, he goes, "Yeah, apparently that was Alpine still trying to fuck me over after all these years." His quote, not mine. Chef's kiss, Oscar. I love it.
Oh yeah, that was scathing and very well done.
And he said it so much under his breath. I had the onboards on, I didn't even hear it until it obviously got picked up by all the fans and spread around a bit. So you'll have to. But again, like I love that was the attitude right in the moment. And again, unflappable. He just went back to doing what he did, and any advantage that Lando had got quickly evaporated in the next 2 laps anyway, after Piastri put in a couple really quick ones. So The backmarkers were interesting to say the least this weekend here in Austria. All right, so we'll move into the midfield. P12 saw Isaac Hadjar. P11 was Ali Behrman. P10, Esteban Ocon in the Haas. We almost had double points for Haas, but here's the real story, guys. P9, he did it again. Nico Hulkenberg in the Kick Sauber. That's 3 points finishes in a row for that guy. And P8, Gabby Bortoletto, first points in Formula One. He makes the qualifying form stick. Congratulations to Gabby Bortoletto. He had potential aspirations to pass his manager late, but it was not to be. Fernando Alonso comes home in P7, getting Aston Martin some much-needed points there. P6, if you forgot about him after the first 2 weekends of the season, you could be forgiven for doing that, considering Red Bull certainly wanted to forget about him, but he's back now. Liam Lawson, and outscoring the Works team here. Liam Lawson was back, finished actually the final finisher on the lead lap, comes home in P6. P5, it got hot. We never saw what Kimi Antonelli could do, obviously, because of the crash, but no better than P5 for George Russell in the Mercedes this weekend. They were complaining a lot about tire wear. And P4, we're going to talk about what his team did to him, because this was just kind of odd. You might want to listen to the 7-time world champion when he doesn't want to change his tires, because maybe he knows a thing or two. But Lewis Hamilton comes home in P4 after you would have thought he could have been on for a podium, but that was not to be. We'll give you the podium right now. We'll just talk about all of this. P3 was his teammate Charles Leclerc. P2, he gave it a valiant effort, especially in the first 20 laps that made my heart skip a couple beats. Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, but it was Lando's day at the end of the day. Lando's weekend. He converts the pole position into the win and takes the victory here. All right, Cody, big thoughts in the midfield first, and then we will talk about the podium and the 2 McLaren battle.
Lots going on in the midfield, too. It was really awesome to see double points for Sauber. They're actually, we were ready to write them off again earlier this season, and now they're almost, they're pretty much making this a real points fight for position at the backmarker teams. So at least that's, getting heated up and exciting. Fernando Alonso, who didn't get any points for how many races at the beginnings. Now he's, back to form and regularly getting points again, which is great. Liam Lawson, I fingers crossed, it's not a flash in the pan. He's had a really rough go this season with both teams that he's been a part of. But it was good to see him actually get a real good result. I was questioning it a little bit when he got qualifying. I was thinking, okay, great, you put it together over one lap. Let's see you do it over the course of a race. And he did it. He finished where he started. That's about all you can hope for from, the Racing Bulls car, I think. Finished right around where that car is deserving to be. And, then we've got, as you said, Lewis Hamilton. Maybe could have been on for a podium. Ended up not being on for the podium, and I really think that's because Red Bull didn't. Or sorry, I'm so mad about Max. About Red Bull. Ferrari didn't really give him the chance to get lucky.
Right.
So Ferrari seems to really get into this mode where they come up with a strategy, they think that's the strategy, and they won't budge on it for anything.
Yeah.
You got Lewis Hamilton, who's running around doing pretty good, at the top of the midfield. As we said, potentially on for a podium, and the team says, all right, we're going to pit. And Lewis, he knows his way around a Formula One car. He's done this a few times, and he's been pretty good at it. And he says, yeah, my tires are still pretty good. I'd like to stay out. And they're like, no, we're going to pit. And he's like, my tires are good. I don't want to pit. And he was actually getting pretty aggravated on the radio. And they're like, we pit. And he did. And it doesn't make sense to me because with where he was at, if he's still got the tires, you never know what's going to happen. Crazy shit happens.
There was a 40-second gap between where Lewis was and where George finished.
Mm-hmm.
The worst you're going to do is hang it out there, it not work, you get passed by Charles, assuming you don't teammate collide, and maybe that's what they were banking on. then you were
I
fine.
think,
And you're right back where you were. George, there was no threat from behind. There was none.
yeah, if he says the tires are good, logic to me says like, okay, well, let's leave them out there for a little longer and see what happens. Maybe a safety car will happen, and we'll get the benefit of that and get our cheap pit stop, and then really be on for a podium. But like I said, no, like Ferrari seems like they come up with their strategy and they stick to it. Anything be damned, and they don't want to deviate even with things coming up like, hey, these tires are lasting longer than we thought that they would. Nope, you still got to pit.
Well, I mean, we saw the same thing a couple weeks ago with Charles Leclerc saying, "No, I want to do the one stop to Plan C," and they ignored him. And now the shoe's on the other foot, and Lewis is clearly saying his tires, I think, were fine. Lewis has got a ton of experience around this track. He knows how to work and manage tires if he's required to do that. I was shocked that they didn't have even an inkling of pivoting, and it was just, nope, we box, and that's just the end of the discussion, and you're coming in. And I guess good on Lewis for not wanting to make this a bigger deal, because he clearly could have by, not coming in, but it ends up working. Maybe this is where they were finished anyway, but like the good news is, if you're a Ferrari fan, I thought the updates were working. They were clearly the second best car here, which is a massive improvement from where they've been. The bad news was they were still 19 seconds adrift of the race win, so that was a bit of a problem. But that was because the two McLarens, especially Piastri, especially early, like the movie makes at the first turn, it reminded me of like, get out of here, fly, whap, and Charles Leclerc was gone. That's what it looked like to me, especially when I saw, the helicopter shot of it. But yeah, Oscar Piastri makes up for not getting the front row in qualifying, and it's right from the jump. The battle ensues from the very, very beginning. This is on full fuel. Oscar's in DRS for the first 19 or 20 laps. Multiple attempts at Lando. One attempt that actually he does get past for a minute, but Lando undercuts him, comes back at turn 3, and then gets him back going down into 4, and Oscar locked up a little bit. Amazing that Oscar's tires were keeping those up with Lando's, considering he was in the really, really dirty, hot air for most of that. I think even Christian Horner commented on, hot damn, the McLaren tires situation had to be really good, because I didn't think he was going to do that. Neither did I. But there was the one scary moment where it all could have come undone. Right as they were getting ready to pit, and this is after 20 laps of this, Oscar gets a little ambitious and goes for a move down in turn 4 and locks up and almost loses control of the car, and got about yet close to ruining both of their days. Luckily, there was no contact, and luckily everything goes on the way that it did, but a scary moment for sure. So much so that the pit wall came on and said, look, we'll let you guys race, but don't get out of control, was basically the messaging. And from then on, after the first pit stop, I think Lando was definitely better on the harder set of tires. Pulled out a bit of a gap, managed to get around 4 or 5 seconds. And that was because Oscar wanted the clean air and a chance at the clean air. They gave him the option. But he takes the tire offset, and it didn't really work for him. But he gets back on the medium tires, and he was making the medium tires work really well. Gets back really close to Lando. Has the incident with Calapinto and Sonoda there, and Lando's got some traffic issues too. And it looked like kind of Oscar just kind of ran out of time. By the time he got close, or the inkling of the outside of DRS, it was lap 70, and Lando crosses the line for the win. But epic battle early. Cody, what'd you think of it?
That was the highlight of the race, and the McLarens were definitely in a league of their own today. It was kind of almost feeling like the Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, Mercedes days.
That was the reminder I got too. Yep.
Yeah, it's like it's a good battle between the two of them, and they're way out in front of everybody else, pretty much from the off. But it was really great battling. It was really nice that Oscar Piastri was able to stick with Lando for so long, because that really made the battle very exciting. He actually did very briefly get by Lando, but Lando, played that smart. It seems like the play is if someone is trying to pass you at the top of that hill with turn 3 or whatnot, you get if they pass you there, you're going to maybe still get DRS and get it right back by. So, and that's exactly what Lando did. He played it smart. Piastri got around him, but Lando ended up getting the better exit, got the DRS, got back by. And that was the closest it got, other than, when Oscar had his lockup. I think that this is actually some of the best racecraft from Lando that we've seen all year. He had the lead. He made a great start. And he had to deal with Oscar pretty much in some capacity that entire race, especially at the beginning, very close battle between the two of them. But later on in the race, Oscar's making a good charge and catching back up, and Lando has to try to not make any mistakes. And, he did have a couple mistakes here and there. He did have one part where he went off into the gravel a little bit, and that allowed Piastri to catch right back up to him. But overall, I thought he did a fantastic job weathering the attacks from Piastri. And considering what happened, in Canada, where, he ruined his race and almost ruined his teammates' race, and all, like you said, all the criticism that he was getting, the fact that he bounced back and had this type of victory, I think, is exactly what he needed to do to build his confidence back up for the championship fight, to really feel for himself like, yes, I can do this, and silence the critics.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I saw is, I don't know if he listens to this show, but he was listening, because he finally got to the inside. How many times have I screamed, for the love of God, get to the inside at these corners. It's so much better for you that way. And he finally did it. Like, that was the turn one at the beginning of the race. That's how he defended. And from Leclerc, he cuts Leclerc off. Piastri obviously goes to the outside and gets Leclerc, but he clearly got the jump in a vulnerable spot, because as we saw from the F3 and F2, just because you're on pole position doesn't mean you're leading after the first set of corners there. And in a lot of those battles, he was getting to the inside. He was cutting off Piastri from getting to the inside. He was going to make, if Oscar was going to do it, he was going to have to hang it out on the outside, where it's harder and you don't have the rules are not in your favor. As we also learned, because that came out this weekend too, the FIA actually published a lot of what we kind of already knew, but now that's out there for everybody to read and to go see. And we may talk about it in a preview episode if I really want to get nerdy and break it all down. I don't know. We'll see about that. I've got my limits as to how much I want to analyze rules, but anyway, but yeah, I think you're right. I thought the racecraft that he was showing, there is the moment where, and it's really close, where when Oscar does the move on the outside and gets ahead, and Lando does the switchback, that switchback was a lot closer than I think a lot of people saw, because when I watched it for the second time, I'm like, his front wing almost clips the back of Oscar's car there again. So, I mean, there was a couple of moments where, like I said, my heart was literally on top of my feet, just praying to God that nothing else happened. But luckily nothing did. Now they go from here to Great Britain, a track that should suit them pretty well. But I do think if it's cooler weather, it's going to bring some of these other players back in, particularly Mercedes. If Ferrari's updates are working, there's still, and Max is not going anywhere. Now he's free to fight however he wants to. He doesn't have to worry about points, and he's not going to care. He may not have cared anyway, but it's going to be interesting to see. Here's the crossroads for Lando. Every time we've said, this looks like a turning point for Lando, this looks like it should be, now he needs to put something together. It's the race after he does this. We said this about Singapore. We said this after Zandvoort last year. We said this after Australia this year. We thought that this was finally the page turner to the Lando story, and yet we would still get plagued by bad Q3 or mistakes or, running into your teammate type of stuff. What happens next is going to define where this championship goes, because right now it's 15 points. It is still definitely in play. But if he botches something next weekend, all this good work and this incredible weekend that he has basically goes down the toilet in terms of the championship. So I'm thrilled that he was able to do this, because this is the high. This is why I'm a fan of his. And I'm praying to God that he makes it and gets some consistency out of it, because this is what he can do when he's right. All right. Well, that said a lot. Anyway, So we're going to take a quick break. That pretty much leaves it here. I don't think there's really anything else left to be said there. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll re-rack. We'll come on back. We'll look at where we are in those drivers and constructor standings. There is a new person in the top 10. And if you would have told me that after 11 races we were going to have his name in here, I'd have called you a damn liar. Just goes to show you can't predict this sport, even when you think you can. And we'll talk about predictions a little bit later, but we'll also react to some of your takes on what you saw this weekend in the fan email segment. We'll hand out some awards. We will talk about those predictions and where we were. I had to get out the Excel sheet and do some math. The quality time deltas were ridiculously close. So we will talk about that when we get to the predictions in a little bit. Come on back. You won't want to miss it. All right, welcome back on in. This is Season 7, Episode number 22 of the Outlap F1 Podcast. It's our 2025 Austrian GP review show. You've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight. And if you were watching the video in the first segment, you probably saw me looking down a bit. I am in a bit of constant communication with my sister, who is eminently pregnant. So we are on a bit of baby watch. She was texting me something not related to that, but I saw her name pop up and instantly thought, oh my God, I have to respond to this. So I apologize for looking down while Cody was talking. I was paying attention. Part of the gig here is you have to do like 4 things sometimes at once. So I hope nobody noticed me lacking in the discussion. I was trying to be fully immersed in both things at the same time. But yeah, like I said, we are on kind of baby watch. And once I have good news to report on that, I will definitely do so as well. But anyway. We just wrapped up. We did just wrap up talking about the Austrian GP, the McLaren 1-2 with the Max Verstappen, bit of a wreck there. Cody has changed hats, so now he is. I don't know if this is coming over to the light side from the dark side or where. I don't know how we're playing this, but anyway, Cody has changed his hat for now, so we will see where that goes. As we now look,
it's all a matter of perspective.
Yeah, that's true. As we now look at the drivers and constructor standings, so as always we do, Cody, if you take the drivers, I will take the teams. Pay attention to the end, guys. The P10 is fascinating. Cody, what you got?
All right. We still have Oscar Piastri in his McLaren leading the driver standings now at 216 points. Lando Norris closed up the gap a little bit today, so it is still a very tight championship fight between the 2 McLaren drivers. Lando Norris in second at 201 points. However, the gap has widened significantly with Max Verstappen's retirement from the race today. He's still in third place in his Red Bull, but he is at 155 points still, which means his gap back to Lando is 46 points, and his gap back to Oscar is pretty massive, 61 points at this point. So, I mean, miracles can happen, but it is very, very, very long shot at this point. In fact, George Russell in 4th place in his Mercedes, he's only 9 points. Am I doing the math there right? Yeah, 9 points behind Max. So very close between the two of them. I mean, if at this point, if you still think Max can win the championship, that pretty much means that George can still win the championship. So yeah, it's out there.
They're going to have to put races together, and the McLarens are going to have some really off weekends, which it's possible. We've seen it, but I don't know that they're going to happen.
But
that's true.
I don't think so. But I'll still keep that Red Bull hat close by for when Max hopefully gets some more wins this year. But anywho, Charles Leclerc in 5th place in the first Ferrari. He is at 119 points. Lewis Hamilton in 6th place in the other Ferrari at 91 points. A bit of a gap between the two of them. Lewis still has yet to get a podium in a regular Grand Prix this year, I believe. But he does still have that sprint win, at least, to hold up. Kimi Antonelli, pretty poor race from him today. Only made it about a third of a lap before ruining it for him and Max. But so no points for him this weekend. But he's still in 7th place in the second Mercedes at 63 points. Alex Albon, rough weekend for him. Rough weekend for Williams in general. Both of the drivers retiring from this race. At least Alex got to participate in the race a little bit before he retired. But Alex Albon, 8th place in Williams at 42 points. Esteban Ocon in 9th place, and Haas. We've got Haas driver, up in the top 10, which is a fantastic thing to see. He's at 23 points. However, just 1 point behind him in 10th place.
This is
We see
unbelievable.
Nico Hulkenberg and Kick Sauber popping into the top 10 in the points. So it's pretty crazy to me to think that at this point, about almost halfway through the season here, and we have a Haas driver and a Kick Sauber driver, both in the top 10 for the points. It's great to see. It's almost a little scary at this point that we're heading into new regs. It's going to mix everything up because it's just, in some ways, it's tightening up, and in some ways, it's spreading out. Out at the top, it's tightening up the back, and we're just going to have to see what happens next year. But for the moment, it's really fun.
Yeah, and what I would take away from that is smart guys can turn the tide of teams. So if you are a team that is struggling to find the right people, all you got to do is hire some smart guys. Kick Sauber has at least done that. They hired Mattia Bonato, who's got a ton of engineering experience, and Jonathan Wheatley, who was, for a lot of people, the brains of what a lot of people say were the Red Bull operation when they were winning championships with both Max and Sebastian Vettel. So, and you're watching it kind of in real time. They brought some updates to a car that was really bad in the beginning of the season, and now it's scoring points. And there you have Nico Hulkenberg in P10, in our top 10. I would have called you a goddamn liar if I had ever had aspirations of seeing Nico Hulkenberg in the Kick Sauber. Rachel Fleming must be doing backflips over there in merry old England with her Sauber watch, because this has got to be the most interesting Sauber watch season in a long time. So good on them. That's fun to watch. All right, so looking at the team standings, McLaren, Mercedes have continued to update and broaden their lead in the constructors. They are up to 417 points on the season after the bounce back, 1-2 after the Canada little tripping over themselves there. Ferrari are back into second place. The battle for P2 in the constructors is going to be a thing as we come home in this season, because Ferrari's on 210 points, a scant 1 point ahead of Mercedes. So expect these to swap a few times before the end of this season. They are on 209 points, are Mercedes. Red Bull checking in with 162 points, so they have lost some ground in the constructors as well. But they have a big gap back to P5 Williams, who, despite no points today, still maintain a pretty healthy lead with 55 points for P5. P6 is Racing Bulls. They move up to 36 points. P7 is Haas. They move up to 29 points. But hot on their heels is P8 Aston Martin, who have found some new form in the form of updates recently, and Fernando Alonso now contributing to that point total as well. And P9, don't be sleeping on these guys, because Kick Sauber is in the hunt for P7 as well. They're only 3 points behind Haas. They check in with 26 points. And P10, somebody's got to finish P10. Going to be probably Alpine. They check in. They remain on 11 points, despite some really nice qualifying efforts from Pierre Gasly recently.
My big takeaways from this are you've got only a 10-point gap at this point between Racing Bulls, Haas, Aston Martin, and Kick Sauber. So it's all to play for on the second half of the grid there.
Which means
Williams up in 5th place, which is nuts. And you've got Red Bull Racing, who 11 races into the season here, Max Verstappen is still responsible for all of their points except for 7. This is weird times, man. Yeah,
weird times. Noodle salad sometimes is kind of how that goes. But I mean, it's going to make the P9, the P8, P9, P10 battles are going to be fierce, and that's going to affect the race at the top, because we're going to see these leaders come on these guys, and they're going to be fighting tooth and nail for every point that they can scratch and claw and try to get. And this is mega money that could change hands. If you're Racing Bulls, you're sitting pretty good in P6. You could find yourself in P9. That's like what, $15 million difference in prize money if you slip that far down. So, and Kick Sauber's looking up and going, we might get some money going into next year, and we need to develop our engine. So they're going to do everything they can to scratch and claw out whatever money they can get out of this season, because their future doesn't look so good. But as I said before, they've hired some really smart people. So you never know what's exactly going to happen. Maybe they can make up for it in aero if the engine is a little lacking. But you have now heard our takes on the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. It is now time for the fan email segment, where we hear your takes on which you guys saw during the Austrian GP weekend. We've just got 2 contributors, but they are 2 regulars. We shall start, as we are always have to do, with Rachel Fleming, who has written us a great recap. Cody, what you got?
All right. Thank you, Rachel, for your email. And she says, that was a really good race. Lando bounced back from the disappointment from Canada and never looked that troubled, barring that one moment when Oscar locked up almost into Lando. Max and Kimi. 100% on Kimi. It didn't look good live, and it looked even worse in replays. A real rookie error there. Not the best thing to happen for Kimi, especially when George said Merc are talking to Max, but I don't think Max will go to Merc. But Red Bull have a real issue if Max goes, because Max is carrying that team now. As we just said, all the points except for 7. The second car has gotten worse over time, and I doubt anyone could drive it now. The last place at the home Grand Prix is a really bad look for Red Bull. Williams had the day from hell, but with both cars failing reliability-wise again, that car could get 5th in the Constructors if they can sort this out. The start was an absolute fiasco, by the way, by race control. What on earth was Franco Colapinto doing when he nearly took Oscar out? We nearly had an alternative universe of Mark Webber storming down the pit lane to confront Flavio. Alonso Watch made the one-stop work and got more good points for the team. And finally, Sauber Watch. Double points. Nico was dead last and still got into the points, and Bortoletto was outstanding and deserves all the plaudits this weekend. First double Sauber points since Brazil 2019. So yeah, they have definitely come a long way over the last few years. Amendment, they got double points. So they got a double points finish in 2023. Yeah, we'll forget about that one. No idea why I thought Brazil 19 was the last
2019
time.
sounds so much more epic.
Okay, so they've had one double points finish since that time.
And that was a crazy, and as I remember, that was a crazy rainy race. So that was not on merit. This stuff, this was sunny and warm and fully dry. This was on merit and pace.
Yep, no crazy safety cars, really. You had like the one right at the beginning that probably didn't really mean for much. So yeah, on merit, great time. Lots of good points in here. We did talk about the Franco Colapinto thing, almost taking Oscar out. We did talk about that was pretty clumsy on his part. Honestly, Sonoda was involved in all that too. Yes, we did talk a little bit about Max carrying the team, how Yuki Tsunoda is struggling in that second Red Bull car. They cannot figure this out. I don't know what is going on, if the car is just awful and Max is carrying it, or if the car is on some like super fine knife edge and Max is the only one who can make it work right now, or it's like super tailored to him. But no matter who they're putting in that second seat this year, they can't get it done. Like, it's, to me, the more that this goes on and the more drivers they try in that second seat, the more it's looking like Sergio Perez has probably still got it, because we gave him so much
Cadillac
shit.
is calling.
We gave him so much shit over the years for not being able to keep up with Max, and who can? There's only I think a few drivers that are in that echelon, but goddamn, like, he left the team, and now we've got, between Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson over the course of 11 races, we've got 7 points in that second seat. That's not even like a 4th place or a 5th place finish over the course of 11 races. That's really bad. And I totally agree that if Max leaves that team, Red Bull is screwed, really abysmally screwed. Because who do they got to put in the car? And they have to they have to get a car that works for those drivers. So, like, they really better hope that Max doesn't get out of his contract and Mercedes doesn't pay it off or something, because like, they will really be in trouble. I personally don't think it's going to happen. I think it's still pretty much just rumors at this point. We'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, my thoughts are, it doesn't make sense to me, especially now. But I still have to put everything against the backdrop of 2026, which, of course, for a lot of these teams is a giant question mark. Red Bull are going to be making their own power units with the help of Ford, and Lord only knows, that's a huge undertaking for them. We don't know what the Aero is going to look like. They don't have Adrian Newey designing the car anymore. So, a lot of unknowns and a lot of things for Max, who he's basically in it to win it. He's not going to want to be coming home in 5th and 7th place. That's not what he's there to do. So you take it to kind of the obvious conclusion. Let's say Max jumps ship and goes to Merck. Now it's on Toto Wolff. What do you do with either Kimi Antonelli or George Russell? Because you've got Kimi Antonelli on a short leash, and you've got George Russell right now without a contract. My guess is Toto's going to open the bank for Max and not re-sign George Russell and go with a Max Kimi lineup. It's my guess, especially given how fondly he thinks of Kimi Antonelli and the fact that Kimi Antonelli's made him look good early, other than today. He's made him, for the most part, look pretty good.
He's a rookie.
Yeah, exactly. But so then where does that leave George? That leaves George going to Red Bull with lots of question marks. So you'd have new driver, car that we're not sure of, power unit that we're not sure of. If I'm Christian Horner, I'm calling whatever lawyers I have and making sure those exit clauses are locked down tight and Max is staying, because that's their only real path forward, if you ask me. No offense to George, but that's asking a ton of it on him to come into a new team in new regs with a whole lot of unknowns to a team that isn't what it used to be. Literally, the parts of it are not there anymore. So, yeah, it's fascinating if it happens. It would be major league story if it did. But again, as you correctly pointed out earlier, Cody, we were saying the same thing about Lewis, and I was very, very wrong about that. So I don't see it yet. But if Max gets more frustrated, now, here's the one good silver lining. We haven't even talked about this. He survived the race ban issue. 2 penalty points have come off.
Okay, he's still like 3 points away. You can get that in a weekend.
He's got to do something really bad now to do it. So he's gotten past that part of it. So
at this point, too, like, we were talking about that he's pretty much unofficially out of the fight at this point. At this point, who cares if he gets a race ban? If he gets a race ban, he's like, great, I get to go hang out with my kid for the weekend,
Maybe. But, which also, like, to me, that makes him that much more dangerous to be around.
Yeah.
If you're
I will literally destroy you.
Yes. Like, I do not care. There is nothing, you cannot harm me. You have never dreamed a dream like mine. Those types of things. But anyway, yeah.
We did nail most of the other points in here. Yeah. We talked about the Max and Kimi crash at length. We talked about how well Lando has bounced back from Canada. And we just really hope that he's able to continue that good performance. The Williams day from hell. We kind of talked about that a little bit. Alex Albon actually retired fairly early, I think.
Well, he came in for his pit stop and they never let him out.
Yeah.
Brake issues. And apparently, the Williams does not like the C5 tire, and this race had a lot of C5 tires, especially in qualifying, and they just did not like it.
Yeah. So we've seen lots of really good stuff from the Williams performance-wise that they're struggling with right now is that reliability. So if they can solidify that a little bit, I think they'll really lock in their 5th place here, because they do still have a pretty good gap to the Racing Bulls, but the Racing Bulls are still chipping away at it. We got good points from Liam Lawson this time out. Isaac Hadjar, he was out of the points this time, but he's been a regular point scorer, kind of down there in those last couple positions. So there's still time. Williams needs to figure out their problems.
Well, and there was the shot of poor James Vowles, and anybody who's ever supported a team in any sport has had that look on their face. Mm-hmm. We could just die. So I felt for him in that moment, for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you again, Rachel, for your email. Our next one comes in from Dave Doherty. Thank you, Dave. And he says, hi, team. Well, that was an interesting race. Ferrari and McLaren had brilliant strategies. about that. But but I thought Bortoletto was brilliant this weekend. What were your thoughts on him? Red Bull seems a handful this weekend for both drivers. Is the second car a problem? But Racing Bulls and Kick F1 team seemed very good this week. Yeah, obviously, we talked about how Liam Lawson finally got a real good race result. Starting to show what he was showing last year, which is really good to see that he hasn't just, completely given up. Obviously, Kick Sauber, double points, which is fantastic. And yeah, I don't think we've really given Bortoletto quite enough credit yet. First points in his Formula One career. So, great on him for getting that. And he outdid his teammate. He outdid Nico Hulkenberg this weekend. So, really showing his stuff this time out. We have to remember that Gabriel Bortoletto is a Formula 3 and Formula 2 champion. So he's definitely got the accolades to go with being in Formula 1. He's just...
And I think he won them in his rookie year both times.
Mm-hmm, yeah, he's a very, very good performer in the junior categories, and we had kind of joked about him coming from that and going to the worst team, which now is not the worst team. So this is actually working out pretty well for him. He might be actually coming into this team at a really good time, and hopefully they carry this into the new regulations. Audi's going to be given funding; they're going to have their name on the car, so this might actually work out pretty well for him in the end.
Yeah, I mean, and he's been able to do a lot of things that a lot of sometimes rookie drivers don't get to do. He gets to learn. He gets to learn in a no-pressure environment. If he finishes 14th, does anybody really care? Is there going to be headlines?
Are like, great job.
Right. Like, there's no headlines in Brazil going, oh my God, Gabby Bortoletto can't get into the points. What's wrong with him? Like the New Zealand press do for Liam Lawson. He got a no-pressure environment, got to learn, and the teams brought some updates. They hired some smart people, and you're seeing the kind of transformation. They've got a young driver in Gabby now scoring points. Look at that. And Nico Hulkenberg, like we said before, top 10 in the points. Again, you'd have called me a damn liar if I would have said that was going to happen at the beginning of this season. So well done. Kick Sauber across the board. Jonathan Wheatley and Mattia Binotto doing things and getting stuff done.
Mm-hmm. I'm not entirely sure I'd agree with Ferrari having a brilliant strategy.
You might want to listen to your 7-time world champion. That might help.
Yeah, like, their strategy was fine. They got the drivers in 3rd and 4th place.
Yep.
So I guess they didn't, butcher it. They pretty much, I think, kind of followed the same strategy that McLaren was doing, which I will say that, oh man, who was it? I think it was Ferrari had the better pit stops, I believe. Because if I remember correctly, McLaren had them a little slow.
The first ones were in the 3-second range. Yeah. The second ones were much better.
Yeah. There was somebody, I can't remember if it was Ferrari or McLaren, got it like a 2-second pit stop, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were making it work. I just think that, like I said at length before, Ferrari needs to listen to their drivers and be more willing to call an audible if the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, and and there was from a team perspective, there was nothing to lose with that. Like, that was the thing that kind of bothered me about it, was there was literally nothing to lose. The worst case is Lewis is going to finish 4th and Leclerc is going to pass him on track. Okay. And then you could box Lewis and put him on a set of softs, and you don't have the point for fastest lap anymore, but I would have said, last year, and go let him get the point for fastest lap. So it wouldn't have mattered, kind of at the end. So I don't get why they were so stringent. Probably would have made for a very interesting debrief. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that room just to hear even Leclerc's reaction, because he was the one getting pissed off a couple of weeks ago about the same exact thing. So, they're equal opportunity shuterdowns. It's not like they're favoring one driver over the other. They're definitely not doing that. So maybe that's what it was about, and that's probably the justification. So we'll have to see kind of when they zhuzh up whatever their reasoning was and present it to the media, what they end up saying.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Oh. I was just gonna say, thank you guys for your emails. We're happy to see them. We love talking about them.
Yep. Yeah. Seconded. Right there. All right, so we will turn to our awards. We will start with the rubbish. I've got an on-track one and an off-track one. Cody, I'll let you go first. I think we agree on the on-track one here. What you got?
Kimmy, why? Why did you do this? It was a little brutal there because if you've been listening to the show, you'll know that I have been holding on to hope for Max Verstappen, hoping that he would get that 5th consecutive championship, despite the fact it's becoming a longer and longer shot. But he has, despite a couple of rough finishes, stayed mathematically in the hunt pretty well up until today. I think that today's retirement was, maybe the second to last nail in the coffin for his championship hopes. And it was all undone on the first lap. I mean, he had a lot of work to do anyway, starting from 7th. Qualifying didn't go his way. He was going to have to, and the McLarens were so out in front today, like he would have just had to do damage control, really. He would have been probably happy getting the 3rd or 4th or something just to keep that gap from opening up too much. But yeah, it was swiftly undone by Kimi Antonelli losing control of his car, missing his braking point or something, and taking them both out of the race. So it's definitely messy. It's my rubbish award.
Yep, I agree with you wholeheartedly on the on-track stuff. My synopsis on Kimi Antonelli is he really hadn't looked like a rookie until today, and that was very much a rookie move. He saw a gap. He thought he was going to somehow overtake 2 cars and make it stick, and the physics just did not add up. And he ended up turning his car. It reminds me of a time when I think it was the start of a German Grand Prix or something where Valtteri Bottas took like 4 cars out at the beginning of a race.
Yeah, that was in 2021. Yeah. I can't remember if that was Hungary or something.
It was Hungary or Germany or something like that. Yeah, and
it wasn't Hungary, I don't think, because that was the one that Ocon won. But yeah, it was the wet one where he turned his car into a missile in the first turn. And, it took everyone out.
I had very much flashbacks of that. It's like, if there was anybody else that had, and Max just happened to be in the path. And it just kind of happens. So Kimi gets my on-track rubbish award there. Off-track, this was weird. If you know your F1 history, what happened on the podium could only be described as weird because apparently the FIA invited former FOM president Bernie Ecclestone to present the president's medal to Lando Norris. Bernie Ecclestone has not been allowed to participate in FOM events since Liberty took over. That was one of the first things they did. They gave him an emeritus title and suddenly cut off his access because we were looking in a new era and we wanted new things. The weird subconscious messaging that is sending in an election year is odd to me. I don't know what to make of it. But if that's the lot you're trying to cast, that's an odd one because I don't know how well. I mean, look, Bernie was great for doing what he did with television, but when it came to new media and online media and shows like this, he didn't give a crap. And he openly didn't give a crap. And he made the sport harder to get to and put it behind paywalls for a long time. And it wasn't until Liberty Media kind of unlocked it and then you're seeing the fruits of it. So it was a harken back to a past that I don't know why you want to go back to that. But it's just, like I said, very odd. So I don't know exactly what's going on. So FIA, into the rubbish bin you go there. Specifically MBS, because why not? Anyway, we'll move into analysis paralysis. I think we have agreement here. What you
got? The tires are good. I don't want to pit. We pit.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about that a little bit with Lewis Hamilton at odds with his pit crew, thinking that he should be staying out on the tires, and Ferrari saying we need to pit. And we saw Lewis Hamilton pretty, openly making comments like that when he was at Mercedes. But the difference was Mercedes was willing to listen a lot of the time. They trusted their championship driver. And, maybe it's just because he hasn't been there very long, or maybe it's just because Ferrari is set in their ways. They don't really seem to trust each other yet. And you really need to get that going if you want to have a successful partnership.
Absolutely couldn't agree more. Ferrari, get my analysis paralysis. Why you're not listening to a 7-time Drivers' World Champion is beyond me. That guy, Lewis, knows how to manage tires. Lewis understands the Pirelli rubber probably as good as all your engineers do, if not maybe better. If he's saying that the tires are good, I'm apt to believe him. So that was, like I said, odd. But and the other fact is, even if you left him out, it probably doesn't cost you anything. You had such a gap to the guys behind. You had a free pit stop anyway. So you could have taken it whenever the hell you wanted if the plan didn't work. So why you had to do that right then and there in the fervorous and slam nature that you did, this is 2 in a row now. So it's very, very weird. Don't understand it. Don't get it. So analysis paralysis it is. All right. So this is an easy one for Dark Horse. I'll go first with this one. Gabby Bortoletto, on it all weekend long. He showed some good form of practice. It translated to qualifying. That translated into the race. First points on the season, first Q3 appearance for him on full merit. And that's the best part of it. So you go Gabby and kick Sauber for sure. Cody, what you got?
I'm going to take that and expand it to the Kick Sauber team as the dark horse for getting double points for the first time since 2023, which we now know. Great performance from them. They've really been building it up since the beginning of the year, and I hope they continue to bring a good fight for those second half of the teams in the points.
Yep, very good. All right, so we'll move into driver of the day. This one's easy for me. My boy Lando, getting it done. On it all weekend. He misses FP1, but it was no problem. And oh, by the way, his replacement actually did pretty well for FP1.
Yeah, Alex Dunn was great.
It's like all of a sudden he's doing quali sims. I'm literally watching this and I'm like, they let him do a quali sim? Oh, Lord.
He was like 4th fastest in practice or something like that. It was a great showing.
Yeah, I mean, so his name is now on the radar now for sure. But Lando Norris and his car were on it all weekend. And this is why I'm a fan of his, because this is what he's capable of. This is the good side of it. I ride the roller coaster. We went through the bad. This was the good. Let's hope there's more good coming. He's going to a race I know he really wants to win. The British Grand Prix is something he wants real bad. I just hope he doesn't want it too bad, because sometimes that tends to when he makes mistakes. But if he can start to put this together, his championship's not over yet by any stretch. I'm excited. Cody, what you got?
I think I got to wonder if this is the first time that we've had total consensus through all of our awards.
That's true.
My driver of the day is also Lando. Great bounce back from Canada. Did everything that he could do. He got pole. He had the lead off the line. And most importantly, he had to hold off Oscar Piastri, who was fighting hard for that win. Kept the pressure on pretty much throughout most of the race, and Lando was able to hold him off. And so that to me shows that they're both in it for the championship. They both got the skill to win this championship. It's not going to be a one-man show, and that's great for us because that means it's going to be a fun, tight battle probably through to the end of the season.
Oh, be still my beating heart. Oh, boy. If that can make it, we'll be fine. But it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, look, if I take my hat off for a minute and put myself in neutral, that's exactly what you want. You want to see if it's going to be a 2-man race, well, let's make it a really fun 2-man race, and let's see what happens on the other side. All right, so we will talk a little bit about predictions. I had a pretty good weekend this time, if I say so myself. But, Cody, you finished with 2 points. I had to get out the Excel sheet to do the math on the quali delta time. Your quali delta time was really, really close. You were like 0.016 seconds off of it. That was better than my 0.15 seconds, which I thought was pretty good too. So you get the point for there. And we did not get Red Bull double points, so you got the prop bet there.
Didn't get any Red Bull points.
Well, I was leading with my heart, and my heart came through. I got the pole sitter with Lando. I got P1 on the podium with Lando, P2 on the podium with Oscar. Fastest lap driver was Oscar Piastri. That did not surprise me there. Fastest lap time, I was closer than yours, and I also said no Red Bull double points. So I now get some distance for now. I'm sure this is going to tighten back up, but I now lead 6-4 in the overall. I'm sure you will kick my ass in Great Britain, but so we shall see.
Never know.
As we throw
Depends
darts.
on how much of a fanboy I am.
Yeah, as we throw our darts at a dartboard there. All right, speaking of that race, it's going to be on us fast and furious. We will try to get a preview out mid this week to try to set the stage for the British Grand Prix, which is going to, like I said, it may be vastly different weather. British weather always seems to surprise. Will there be rain? Will it be super hot? Who knows? We will get into all of that in our preview episode. And if any news breaks, if there is some sort of weird other story about Max Verstappen and Mercedes, we'll cover that too. I think that horse has been beaten to death this weekend, so I really hope that's kind of it for now. But one never knows what will come between now and Wednesday night. But that's what we'll try to do. And then it's a long weekend for us in the U.S., so we will watch our British Grand Prix in the morning, and we'll do our best to try to get a review out next weekend as well. Cody, any final thoughts? Looking forward to Great Britain?
I'm very much looking forward to Great Britain. Silverstone, it's a great track. It's always a great race. It's probably the best home race you could hope for as a Formula One driver. I mean, I guess you could say Charles Leclerc has the Monaco Grand Prix, but I mean, Great Britain is way more exciting than that one. And there's going to be a lot of really diehard fans out there. So hopefully we get some really strong performance from Lando Norris, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, who is like always good here, disturbingly so.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to it.
And Ferrari upgrades kicking in right at the right moment. So there is hope afoot for plenty of drivers, and we will see what all that comes. But for now, that's it for us for tonight. For Cody, it's been Andy. Like I say all the time, take care of yourselves out there. And as always, may all your laps be fast.